Welcome. My name is Bill Pass. I'm the pastor of the Church of Redemption here in Agawam, Massachusetts. And welcome to our video. I want to welcome Al Drum, the author of these 4 wonderful books. And we're just going to go over some of the ideas and thoughts. So welcome, Al.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Pastor.
I'd like to go back to when Al first got the thoughts of doing something like this from my dad, who was the pastor at the time. So Al, why don't you start by sharing a little bit about that?
Well, I was in the church and it was for a very short period of time, and one Sunday Pastor Eugene got up in church and said, there's no reason why the artwork of Al couldn't be something of the Lord's work. And he mentioned Thomas Kinkade, which kind of blew my mind away, because here I'm sitting in church and I'm going, what was that? I can remember going out to the car and I say to my wife, I love that man. I said, I really like him. I said, but where does he get these things? He says, well, at that time, I was, like I said, I was new in church and I didn't really understand much about the Lord, but there was something about it that I stayed. And I learned that where he got it was the Lord. The Lord had put it on his heart. And what happened was 4 books. Here I am, a dyslexic and the worst writer in the world. But not true. So I had a whole bunch of pictures that the Lord had me do, and then I'm looking around and I can't find anybody to help me draw. Do the book. So I spent a lot of time, especially on the first one, on my knees in the studio, asking the Lord what he wanted. And basically, he prophesied that I was going to do something for the Lord with my artwork, and that's happened.
So fast forward a few years ago, Al and I were talking about how we can get his book published, and he, excuse me, and he had mentioned about publishers, and we were wondering what to do. And so about 24 hours after our conversation about this, I've got a situation on an email that I get, and the email tells me that I was looking for any publisher for any books. I've never received one before or after. And it was interesting. The email came from a gentleman named Jason Raviza, and he is, my wife used to tutor his son. Well, Jason is part of this Abba Father Media publishing company, and it turned out that it was amazing of the timing. I felt like it was the timing of the Lord and how this happened so quickly. So what happened was we connected with them. We had set up a meeting with Al and their team, and we went ahead and started to prepare and ask questions, and it worked out really well as we worked together to get this to come together for the publishing of these books that Al was working on. So we were really blessed by how that all happened, and the timing of it was impeccable. As the Lord tells us in His Word, His timing is always right on time, and we felt like this was right on time. So I thank the Lord for that and how that went. So, Al, do you want to elaborate any more on that part of it before we actually talk about your books a little bit specifically?
Well, I think that you've pretty much just told everybody what happened. The thing of it is that these books are not something that I would have done. They're the Lord. I know they're the Lord because I would not write anything if I didn't have to. The first book here is the book that started it all, and this was a book that Pastor Eugene, when his illness was about him, he really wanted it done. He had promised that just before, it was a very busy season, but that me and him would get together and do this. And his illness had progressed so far that he really didn't have the strength to do a lot of things. So he asked a couple of the fellows that were in the church to work with me on this. And so it's more or less, it's dedicated in his memory, because Pastor Eugene and the Lord are the reason this book exists. The book is about confusion, and it's where I was when I came to church, and it's pretty much just a step-by-step of how Pastor Eugene taught me what Jesus Christ was about, and that the confusion was taken out of this. So the next book is a book that I This last book I probably worked on, but right now, as the way the world is today and the way things are happening in this country, it's the Patriot's Tear. It's about where America came from and why it's here, and where it should be and what it should be. It's for all Americans. It's why we have freedom and what God has promised us. This next book is a book called It's Not the Shoes. A young man who was walked as a very young child used to go to our church, and one Sunday he got up in his wheelchair and he went around this place, and I mean the joy of the Lord was all over him. He loved the Lord. And while this was happening, I was looking around and looking at some of the other children, and I won't say they didn't know the Lord, but they didn't have that joy that this young man had. In the real world, people, he had nothing to be joyful about, but he had the love of the Lord. And this book just talks about, it's not who you are or how you dress, but what you have in your heart. The last book here is not the last book. This is a book that really got us into printing. At this time when we were doing this book, I saw a young lady that does the Christmas shows, and I asked her where she got her stories, and she says, well, I look around so I see one, and so I had suggested, I said, I just wrote a Christmas book. What do you think? She said, well, I'll pray about it, look into it, and came to talk. The pastor and all of us got together, and this is the book, and it has the temple. Man, each face, it's just, all the Christmas books seem to come out with a new character every year who wasn't either there, or he's very cute and it has a nice story, but it's really not about the love of the Lord. And this is about, we as mankind, we have rejected the Lord, every one of us in some way or form in our lifetime. The night he was born, he was rejected by those. And he was able to come because he found a humble place to be born in. And this story basically is telling you, if you open your heart, and your heart is humble, you will also be able to know the joy of the Lord. It's just been a really unique experience to do something for our Lord Jesus Christ, because he's done so much for us, and most of us, most of our life, don't realize it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's been a pleasure to work with you on this project, and I know that the Lord is going to continue to honor it and the Word tells us to be salt and light for the world, and I believe that's what you're doing with through these books. So thank you so much.
God give me strength. I hope it's so.
Praise the Lord. So thank you very much for joining us on this occasion, and have a blessed day.